Okay.
So this is our elixir presentation.
Topic is human trafficking, and we want to start it off with a story.
Yeah. So this is essentially the story that got us into this topic and kind of built our why and why we care so much about this. So it's about a 15-year-old girl named Geeta from Nepal, and she was systematically raped 7,000 times after being stolen and taken to a brothel in India. She essentially had no reason to have any more hope, and she kind of silenced herself and withdrew herself from speaking and everything and communicating with anyone. So when Matthew Friedman, a human rights advocate, first met Geeta, she was broken and she was a shadow of the person she was before. And slowly she began to regain strength and start to tell her story. And essentially when he asked her if she was angry at her traffickers, she said something really unexpected.
She said no.
Yeah, instead she looked at him with sorrow-filled eyes and said something that haunted us throughout this whole project, something that really impacted us deeply and something that kind of drove the passion we have. She asked, "Where were you when I was in that terrible brothel? I sat there every day waiting for someone to come and save me. I knew what was happening was wrong. Where were you?" And that question, "Where were you?" is the question not just for those who enslaved her, but it was an awakening to us and a calling to us, and it forced us to confront the painful truth that this is not just a story individual to Geeta, but it's happening to millions of people around the world right now. So this kind of leads us into our why.
Yeah. And this is not only Geeta's story obviously means a lot to us, but that's not the only story that's happening. There's so many different people around the world who are experiencing the same thing, if not worse, or this or even just because there's so many different branches in the industry. There's the slave industry where you create
the labor,
the labor, and then there's the sex industry. Sex industry is obviously dominated by girls mostly, and they could be the same age as us or even as young as 5 to 6 years old. And our why is based deeply on our passion, because we both have a deep-rooted passion for this topic, and it has caused us this project to feel something less of a project, but something we actually genuinely want to work on. And that's why we're very proud of it, and we put so much effort into it. And that's one of our whys, but also the whys are stories.
Yeah, we heard many stories, and we also read many stories in many books. And it's kind of these people are speaking to us not just through the book, but also they're calling us, telling us they need help, and not just them, but also everyone else that's going through this. And so, I mean, there's many excuses such as oh, I didn't know about it, or I'm just a kid, I can't do much. But in our opinion, there's no excuse big enough to choose to ignore this problem.
And then we'll move on to our initial plans and ideas. So this is what we wanted to accomplish coming into the project, and we were very naive coming into it. And we expected that we'd be able to jump the gun immediately and start planning an event or raising money for this problem, but we were quickly proven wrong by this, and we needed to gain a foundation before we start anything. And even when we thought we knew enough, we were proven wrong again, and we had to dig deeper. And planning the event would have to and getting approval, we thought this would be a quick process, meeting with Ms. Higginbottom, meeting with Mr. Osbig once or twice, and then we could plan an event. We thought it would be simple, but it's much more complex than that, and that leads us into our process.
So for our process, we're kind of talking about the things we learned. So for what we learned about the process of planning an event and hosting things, so the first thing that we learned is that planning and making a detailed plan of when we want to complete things by is really important in order to schedule meetings and execute plans. So in the beginning, I don't know, we kind of walked in and we didn't really have a solid plan or structure of the things we wanted to do. And this definitely wasted a lot of time, since we kind of had to then go back and make sure we arranged meetings with different people, or got the knowledge we had to have prior to meeting with them.
Yeah.
So now we know for the future, when we do plan events for this cause, we now know that we should time block and plan the different things that we need to do.
Yeah, and probably the most important thing that we learned was, in order to take action and even to know what path we want to follow in this, we must know enough about that topic and have enough knowledge on it, because as I said earlier, there's so many branches in the industry, so we want to really focus on one that we can narrow down, because it's so complex and deep. So we thought that even when we knew enough, we went down another rabbit hole and found out something else that would also be beneficial to us. And there's just so much layers in this, so even when we thought we knew enough, it was just we were just on surface level of it.
Okay, and then also something important to mention was that something really helpful that we learned during this period of time, this 4 months that we were working on it, was getting connections and building connections with people that would be able to help us in the future. such as Miss Ernst, Miss Higginbottom, Mr. Schmidt, of course, helped us a lot, Cadence and Annette. So Cadence, not really anymore since she's passed on her leadership role for against human trafficking, but she did have a lot of helpful insights, so that's definitely important.
And our learning content was also super complex.
So in terms of what we learned about the topic itself, we learned that human trafficking is a really deep-rooted and complex issue that doesn't have one solid solution. And even if you do find a solution that works, it's going to change because there's so many different types of ways people get sucked into this problem. So it's definitely a big issue, and it seemed really daunting at first, since just when we thought we found a solution, such as going and helping people that escaped human trafficking or people escaping human trafficking right now and talking to them about mental health and different things, we would find restraints such as them being treated almost like criminals and kind of being neglected or just refused help and different things, or being denied protection.
Yeah.
And then also underfunding for different organizations kind of was also a big restraint.
Yeah, and adding on to that, another thing we learned is that raising money for this cause isn't something we can really do, because it's not really a problem we can just throw money at. We can't just start a fundraiser and donate it to a cause, because it won't even make that much impact. We learned how difficult it is to number one, getting people to be freed, which is a risk in itself, but also being able to locate them, because the brothels they're in are often hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
So it's so hard to actually know where they are, and that led us to our final solution of just spreading awareness. This might seem like a small cause, but in the long run, it's huge, because there's so many people that are they don't know anything about this cause because it's so not talked about. And in order to make a difference, people need to know what they're trying to, for example, fund money in.
Yeah.
If we were to do a fundraiser.
Okay, so this is our project timeline. We did do different things, but these are the main events or different main time plots that we had.
In January, we started generating ideas, and even in January, after a week of research, we thought we had enough.
Yeah.
But we were proven wrong really fast, and even after reading 3 or 4 books, we still didn't have enough knowledge on this topic because
we still don't.
We still don't. We know a lot about it, but nowhere near enough to actually lead a group of people through an event and educate people about this.
So yeah, we kind of came across our first roadblock when we met with Miss Higginbottom, and we met with Miss Ernst prior to that to kind of compile all of our ideas to kind of form a pitch for Miss Higginbottom. But when we met with her, she pointed out a lot of flaws in our logic, and that kind of caused us to question what we should be doing. So that was really crucial for our process, because it really helped us to kind of go on the right path.
Exactly, and if we didn't, we'd probably just start an event without knowing much information.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be as impactful.
Exactly, and in February, we started getting in touch with organizations such as Migrasia, Sons and Daughters, and our initial plan was to work for Isla and Migrasia, who Mr. Schmidt and Ms. Ernst introduced us to, but we learned quickly that what she was looking from us wasn't what we wanted to execute. We wanted to execute something deeper. We wanted to
raising awareness.
Exactly, and our task at Migrasia would be to research more. And we thought it was kind of hard to research, because the more you found out about it, the more you want to make a difference about it. Because almost painful to just read.
And then on March 18th and March 24th, we attended guest speaker panels and also a simulation held by Matthew Friedman. It was actually here, so people should have went to that. And then we have pictures of it. So these are really important events that we attended, since it really gave a really clear perspective into what, even a small perspective into what the different, what people were experiencing at sweatshops. So we had to screw and unscrew a bolt for 15 minutes straight while being yelled at, and it was really stressful. And it doesn't even compare to the different things that people actually going through this experience, but it was just an inside view that we hadn't gotten before just by reading books or reading stories.
Yeah.
And then also the speaker panel gave really good insight, because it showed us that even the stories we have been reading, they're not unique. Everyone here had similar stories, but from very different people from very different places.
Yeah.
So
just to add in, Matthew Friedman, the guy in the back there, he's the guy that met Gita.
Yeah.
That you talked to in the early part of the story.
And he's also the author of the 2 books that we focused on the most, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Cool to meet him. These are the books that we read, and these are the books we also recommend if anyone wants to learn more. Somali Mom, and the Road to Lost Innocence, she talks about the stories of different girls who've gone through the sex industry, and that's really heartbreaking to read. But also Matthew Friedman's book and Kevin Bill's book. Matthew Friedman has another book as well, and
But we really like his Be the Hero, Be the Change book,
Yeah.
so you can check it out in the library.
Yeah, we have lots of them.
yeah. So moving on to our accomplishments, although we wanted to accomplish more, we were still happy with what we've done because we had lots of interviews. For example, we met with Miss Ernst multiple times throughout the course of these past months, and also with meeting with Miss Higginbottom, Cadence, the leader against human trafficking, and leaders of organizations such as Branches of Hope and Sons and Daughters, which was really impactful.
Yeah, and then I think one of the things we're most proud of is gaining a strong foundation on what even human trafficking is. Because in the beginning, I don't know, we didn't expect to have to do this much research initially, but I'm really grateful that we did because it kind of gave us a lot more insight in what we should actually be doing instead of just hosting a fundraiser that didn't have much impact.
And circling back, obviously we attended talks and simulations were also impactful. But we also conducted a lot of research. For example, reading so many books and reading so many of the people's stories and
Talking to
websites.
people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then that also leads us to our challenges.
We had many challenges, such as the time constraint. So with the ideas we had initially planned, we thought that it would be quite quick to execute them, but the more we realized and the more we took time to actually think about it, we really needed a lot more time than we had anticipated.
Yeah, and the research, after meeting with Ms. Higginbottom, she made us realize that in order to actually make a difference, we need to have a deeper understanding. Because even just knowing a little bit about it, you think you know enough to actually create something, but we were proven wrong extremely fast. And also our mental block. It came to a point where we were we did so much research and discovered so many new things that we realized how complex this issue really is. And it was hard to come up with an idea that would actually benefit or make an impact because there's so many again, not a problem we can just throw money at. You have to actually there's more things to it that are more deeper than we anticipated.
Yeah. And then also another challenge was making time to schedule meetings with different people. So one of the biggest challenges was meeting with Miss Ernst and Miss Higginbottom because they're pretty busy ladies. And so with our schedule and their schedule, there was a lot of conflict.
And especially Cadence during AP season when we wanted to.
So we met with Miss Higginbottom a lot later than we had hoped.
Yeah. And then our next steps, we want to bring back My Freedom Day to HCIS because we used to have this at HCIS, but Miss Higginbottom actually said that
in recent years
we didn't really deserve it as a school because not only did people know so little about it, but also it was kind of embarrassing.
Compared to the other schools that are doing so much to prepare
we would all come together and we would dress up in red like everyone was supposed to. CNN would come to our school and interview us.
And
but this problem is so not talked about, especially at our school. So that's why we want to not only teach more people about it, but bring back My Freedom Day when we actually know more about it and we deserve it.
So kind of a timeline for when we're going to be executing our next steps. So on September 5th, middle school's hosting a Dragon Day, and Miss Ernst has agreed to give us a time slot in order to talk about our elixir, and also talk about ways we can spread awareness and volunteer, and possibly even bring in a guest speaker to talk to the middle schoolers.
Yeah, and December was a thing this December as well, but it was very, very not really as popular as we expected it to be. But we want to bring that back and we want to make it stronger and actually know what people are dressing up for. And then in February, we want to create an event maybe with people who can come in and share their stories because obviously Matthew Friedman was impactful, but we want to hear from someone who has gone through it firsthand, if that's not
more recently.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're going to host an event kind of similar to St. Baldrick's where it's open to everyone, lower primary, upper primary, middle school, high school, and parents, where everyone can come together and rally around a cause that they actually know about and care about.
And then our reflection. So I think we're overall extremely proud of the work we're done. Obviously we haven't it was hard to be proud of it at one point when we didn't accomplish what we wanted to initially. But overall, I think we did. Looking back at it now, we're proud of all the research we did and how much we learned about it, and we were able to get a deeper understanding before we started something that we could finish.
And so in terms of what you all can do, since our goal was to spread awareness, just attending the events that Against Human Trafficking has, whether it be running events or just things within school, and then also just reading the books that we recommended or just watching short videos to educate yourself in order to kind of get a better understanding. Because in the beginning, you might be like, oh, this is kind of a boring topic that I don't really want to get into. But the more you get into it, the more interesting it gets. And you can really see, like, in your day-to-day life, just even like looking at the different manufacturers your clothing brands use to see if they use child labor. Or just like keeping an eye out and seeing like, I don't know, because it's a growing problem here. Like
50 million people, and especially in Southeast Asia, the sex brothels are crazy there. Like, there's so many girls our age that are there and experience getting, for example, Gita's story, getting raped over 7,000 times. And it's a problem that feels so distant, but it's also...
It's approaching us.
Yeah.
Like, there's recent cases near us, so just keeping an eye out and making sure you're well educated on the topic is really important.
Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, it was very interesting to listen to your telling your stories. Yeah. Okay.
Where is it?
We're so much.
Go to Andy.
Yeah.
Will, were you able to?
What is a scam? Oh, yeah. Not scam.
You can actually sing that?
Yes.